What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode, guys. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and we're only one day away from starting the 2019 Stanley Cup Playoffs. I'm so excited, like I said in yesterday's episode, and today we're going to be talking about the Eastern Conference. Now, I'm going to have some controversy with this series, obviously. Some people may say I'm biased, but we'll get to that series later on. There's a lot of good Eastern Conference series as well, just like I said with the Western Conference. We'll get to all of these series today, break down the key players and my predictions for the first round. Make sure you guys drop a like at the bottom of the screen and let me know your guys' predictions for the first round. There's a lot of toss-ups. Some series could go either way, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts as well. So, without further ado, let's get into the episode. Let's start with the top team in the National Hockey League and one of the best regular season teams in the history of the National Hockey League, the Tampa Bay Lightning. So, the Tampa Bay Lightning tied the Detroit Red Wings 1995-96 Detroit Red Wings, I believe it was. Unbelievable accomplishment, 62 wins on the regular season. And this team was unbelievable. They only lost 2 games in a row one time this regular season, which that stat blew my mind. Couldn't believe that. They're taking on the Columbus Blue Jackets, a team that went all out in at the trade deadline, acquiring Matt Duchene, Ryan Dzingel, Adam McQuaid, Keith Kincaid. They went all in at the trade deadline, and I don't know if it paid off or not. I feel like, it wasn't enough. Obviously, I think without those players, they don't make the playoffs, but for getting those players and then coming up against a behemoth like the Tampa Bay Lightning, was it worth it or not? I guess it's worth it if they re-sign all of those players. But let's break down the key players here. Tampa Bay Lightning, Brayden Point. So obviously this team has, the Lightning probably have the best offense in the National Hockey League. Kucherov, Stamkos leading that top line. JT Miller, Tyler Johnson, Andre Palat. It list goes on and on, but Brayden Point is a key piece to this offense. This man right here, Brayden Point, kind of single-handedly took down the Boston Bruins. After Game 1, they were losing, and then they were losing going into the second period of Game 2. And apparently John Cooper had a meeting with Brayden Point and kind of just brought him back to reality. He had an unbelievable postseason against the second round against the Bruins, and then from there had a great rest of the postseason. So Brayden Point is the man, in my opinion, for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think, like I said, this guy's going to be big on the second line. He's definitely going to be able to produce against the Blue Jackets' second line, and that's a big advantage that he does have. While a guy like Matthew Barzal might be in the same situation, probably not as good as a player as him, but he is the top line center, so he's going to have to go up with guys like Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, the best of the best. Brayden Point is kind of sheltered by Stamkos and Kucherov, so I think Brayden Point is really going to break through, and he's a big player for this Tampa Bay Lightning team. Columbus Blue Jackets, who else but the goaltender, Sergei Bobrovsky? If the Blue Jackets are going to win this series, Bobrovsky is going to have to stand on his head. And, I think he has the possibility of doing that. There's the possibility he can do that. And the Blue Jackets are not a bad team at all. I think, they were just starting to gel at the right time now. With all those new trade deadline acquisitions, just kind of like the St. Louis Blues did, but obviously they got their players in the summer. Blue Jackets got the players at the deadline, and they were able to sneak into a playoff spot. I think the series is going to be much closer than a lot of people think. I saw a lot of people saying Lightning in 4. I got the Lightning in 6 games right now. I think the Blue Jackets, remember, they were a weaker squad when they played the Washington Capitals, and they took them to 6 games. I think the Lightning are a better squad than the Capitals were last year, but I still do believe the Blue Jackets are going to take the Lightning to 6 games. And I think it's going to be a lot closer than a lot of people say, but still, how can you not bet against the Tampa Bay Lightning this year? Lightning in 6. On to the Boston Bruins versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, I know most of my viewers are obviously probably from Toronto, but you guys probably know I'm a Bruins fan. So I don't want to say too much about this series. I think this will be probably the series of the best first round series of all of them. Not just because I'll be most emotionally involved in the series, but I think it's going to be back and forth and going to be super close. I think the Leafs obviously definitely improved with Tavares and Muzzin since last season. But I do think the Bruins improved a lot from last season as well. You can look at it in the standings. They finished second overall in the National Hockey League. Bruins acquired Charlie Coyle, Marcus Johansson. Both those players have looked pretty good, even though Coyle hasn't really produced as much as they hoped he would. He still looked very good as a Bruin, and I think he's going to be a big piece for the Boston Bruins. Goaltending, I think, is really going to be a big part of the series and where the series kind of falls. Tuukka Rask, Frederik Andersen, two top goaltenders. Andersen really struggled down the stretch, and I was really questioning Mike Babcock's decision to put Frederik Andersen in against the Montreal Canadiens in the final game. I don't think they should have done that, especially since he got lit up 5-4. I don't think that was quite the right decision. Even throw in Hutchinson, because what happens if Andersen does get injured in the playoffs and Hutchinson hasn't played up to the NHL tempo in months? You know what I'm saying? So I think they should have put Hutchinson in. Andersen went in, got lit up, but I think hopefully for Leafs fans, he will regroup. As for Tuukka Rask, he did not have a great end to the regular season, but he still put up fantastic numbers and was in the Vezina Trophy talk just like Andersen was until about a month and a half ago. So both these goaltenders up and down this season. I think this is going to be where the series is decided. Remember, Andersen didn't have a great playoffs last season, but I think he definitely will have a bit of a better season anyway, a postseason, than last year. On to the key players, Boston Bruins, Jake DeBrusk. Now, Jake DeBrusk had a fantastic playoffs against the Toronto Maple Leafs last year. He had that big Game 7 goal where Jake Gardiner just got blown by Jake DeBrusk. I think this guy is developed into a fantastic player for the Bruins. Obviously, I would have liked to have DeBrusk, Boeser, and Barzal, but I mean, I'll take just Jake DeBrusk, as the Bruins did pass up on Boeser and Barzal to pick Senesh and Zaboral. Anyways, we're not going to get into that. I got to let that go. Jake DeBrusk has become a great player, and I think this is going to be a great playoff producer for the Bruins. Toronto Maple Leafs, Nazem Kadri. Now, we knew he was going to kind of go under the radar as the Leafs' third-line center and maybe not put up as great numbers playing down on the third line. But we didn't know he was going to be this quiet. He's had a very disappointing season for the Maple Leafs. And I think if you're Mike Babcock, you should definitely think about putting Nazem Kadri against the Bergeron line to try to shut them down. They tried that last year in the playoffs. It didn't work quite as well as they were hoping it would. But I think they got to get Kadri on the board as well. But I do have Kadri as their key player. I do have the Boston Bruins winning this series in 6 games. I can't say 7 because if it goes 7, it's just, I don't even want to think about that. I'm not going to say 7 games. Boston Bruins in 6 games this season. I still think the series is going to be very close, but I do believe the Bruins will pull this one off in 6 games. Onto the Metropolitan Division, Washington Capitals, Carolina Hurricanes. Hurricanes snuck in to the playoffs in the first wildcard spot. Storm Surge, I don't think's happening in the playoffs, so Don Cherry, be happy about that. Capitals had a fantastic regular season. They definitely struggled out of the gate like the Penguins, but picked it up like they usually do in the second half. I think they finished 4th in the National Hockey League. Fantastic accomplishment, and this is where the Washington Capitals come to play. I think the Capitals are going into this postseason, again, kind of underrated from just like they did last year and a couple years ago. I think the Capitals are going into the postseason underrated. All eyes are on teams like Tampa, Boston. I think even eyes are on the Penguins more than the Capitals this year, for some people anyways. I do think the Capitals are the best team of the Metro. I think they're coming out of the Metro. I think the Hurricanes definitely... Congrats on them for making the postseason. Usually when the Hurricanes make the playoffs, they make the best of it. They did that a couple of seasons ago, snuck into the playoffs, made conference finals, won the cup a while back as well in the 1990s. So I think when the Hurricanes do make the playoffs, they do make the best of it. But you're coming up against a defending cup champs like the Washington Capitals with speed and size. I mean, Tom Wilson, that guy's just a beast. You do not want to come up against that guy. But they've got size, they've got skill, and I think Ovi wants back-to-back cups, and I think he has a very good chance at getting it. I've got the Washington Capitals right now in 5 games. I think, Hurricanes will be able to sneak one out, probably at home, but I think the Capitals are too good for them right now. Braden Holtby is just a rocking net. Again, underrated season, I think, for Holtby, and I don't think the Hurricanes just have the experience quite yet. Let's talk about key players just quickly here. Sebastian Aho for the Carolina Hurricanes. I think the Hurricanes, in order for them to win the series, their best players have to be their best players for sure. Sebastian Aho needs to have a fantastic playoffs for them, for the Hurricanes, I think, to make it close here. For the Washington Capitals, it's Tom Wilson. This guy, a lot of people were freaking out when the Capitals signed him to that big contract this offseason. Well, the past offseason, he's had an incredible season coming up a cup, and I think he wants another one. The guy is kind of become one of the best power forwards, but not just a power forward, but a kind of a grinder who can still score. The guy's unbelievable, and I think he's definitely worth that contract that the Capitals gave him. I've got the Washington Capitals in 5 games. The final series in the Metropolitan Division, the New York Islanders and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, this is a very close series too, and I don't know exactly who to pick. We'll get to my prediction later. The Pittsburgh Penguins definitely came back. They had a really bad start to the regular season. They were outside the playoffs for a long time. They definitely bounced back. You never count Sidney Crosby or Evgeny Malkin out of making the playoffs, and you can never count them out, in my opinion, of doing something or making some noise in the postseason as well. Both these teams, I think, are very close. They definitely came very close in the standings. The Islanders obviously don't have the same playoff experience here. Matthew Barzal, number 1 center. He's going to have to go up against guys like Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, the best of the best on the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are pretty much put together a dynasty over the past couple years. I don't think he has quite what it takes just yet. He's still only in his 2nd season, right? So I think Penguins definitely have them on the offense. They have them on the defense as well. Chris Letang, fantastic season for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He was injured for a little while, but he's back healthy now. He'll be a big piece for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And in net, I think Matthew Murray will have a great postseason like he usually does. Obviously, the New York Islanders have had 2 of the best goaltenders in the National Hockey League, and they put up together Vezina Trophy numbers together. They've played exactly the same number of games, with their goals against being like 0.2 difference, and with the saves percentage. So I don't think you can have 2 more evenly matched goaltenders. So that's why I have them both down as key players, because I don't know who's going to be in for the postseason, and that's a big advantage I think for the New York Islanders over the Penguins, is that if Dreiss has a bad game, they can throw Leonard in, or vice versa. So the Penguins can't really do that. They're going to be riding Murray straight through. So that's why I do kind of like the Islanders. But at the same time, I think the Penguins have the experience. They have more firepower. I mean, we haven't even talked about Jake Getzel. The guy is over a point per game. You think he's got 40 points in 37 playoff games. Getzel, I think he's definitely going to go off again in the playoffs. And I'm looking forward to seeing this series for sure. I have the Pittsburgh Penguins in 6 games. I think this game won't go quite 7 games. I think it's going to be very close. But I think the Penguins are going to win it in Pittsburgh in advance to play the Washington Capitals. That's going to be it for this episode, guys. I hope you all enjoyed. These are my Eastern Conference picks. Let me know your picks down below in the comment section. Again, I'm super excited for the playoffs. Super nervous for this playoff series as well. It's going to be so close. I'll never hear the end of it at school if the Leafs do beat the Bruins. But anyways, guys, that's going to be it for this episode, guys. I hope you all enjoyed. Make sure to drop a like at the bottom of the screen. We'll see you guys in the next episode.